Awesome. Thanks, Cassie. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Julia. I am super excited to see you guys tonight, and I am excited to share this with you. I actually was very pleasantly surprised by some of the information in this. Not that I haven't been pleasantly surprised by all of them, but I just feel like whenever I was taking notes, I was like scrambling because there is a lot of good content, I felt like, in this one. So we'll just jump on in. We're doing chapter 7 and 8 tonight. And I think we'll just start off with the question that she kind of started off with when she was doing her video. And she said, when you think of a leader that you just naturally pulls you in, what do you think it is that pulls you into that person? Like, what is it about them that draws you in? And whenever I was thinking about that, I'm thinking of like leaders that you admire, people, not just leaders just that are just leaders put in positions, but leaders that you follow and that attract you, and that just make you want to befriend them, make you want to do what they're doing, like those types of leaders. What is it that attracts you to those people? One of the big things, and I'll share with mine too, is one of the big things that I really like was when I look at leaders, I typically try to watch their actions, and I think through actions, a lot of people's hearts come out, if that makes sense. Like you can see a lot about somebody in their actions and the way they treat people, and the way that they talk to them. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you've been with somebody who has, for lack of a better way to put it, who has clout, that they're supposedly a leader. But when they're sitting there talking to people, they're like constantly on their phone and they're just looking down, like either on their phone or doing something, but they're not making eye contact. And to me, that's one of those big things that not just even me as like with business, but with my kids. I try to teach them how important that is to just being somebody who's paying attention to somebody and somebody who's really trying to get to know somebody and make sure they feel important enough that you're giving them your attention. Does anybody have anything on that you guys thought of?
Several people put something in the chat. Do you see?
Oh, there. I forgot to bring my chat up. Thank you. Yeah, confidence, boldness, selflessness, I think is a big one that I think says a lot about somebody's intent. Yeah, joy. Very cool. Yeah. So whenever you're starting to follow somebody, whenever you're starting to attain to be like that person or follow in their footsteps and stuff, like what is it that allows people, what is that allows people to want to do that for us? Like, I think that's something that I really didn't think of too much, is that, and I know we talk a lot about adding to people's lives every day, or adding to their worth, whether it's on social media or just when we're talking to them and stuff. But I thought that was kind of a hard question. I don't know about you, but for me, like that was one of those things that when people are looking at me, it's always hard, I feel like, to find your own reason, like that they follow, where I can pick out Cassie's real easily, like, or you know what I mean, or somebody that you could pick out other people's real easily, but to make it, you look inside yourself and kind of figure out where and what that is and what that looks like for you. Like I felt like that was kind of a challenge to me. So I guess, what is it do you think that causes others to follow you? Like, what is it that makes them respect you enough to want to follow you and do what you do? Like, do you guys think of something for yourself? I think for myself, one thing that I pulled out of that was that I am not afraid to shy away from discussing hard things. And I also am very honest, and I try to do it in love as much as I can. But I think that is one of the things that people have told me in the past that they admire or that they like about content or information that I've put out, is because a lot of times they know that they can trust that information because I've done my due diligence to make sure that it's accurate information, that it's trustable information, and that it's truth. So is there something that you could think of about your own way that whether your life or your business or something like that, that you've been told maybe by others, or that you can tell by yourself, that is something or a reason that people kind of follow you? I'll try to pay more attention to my chat this time.
Okay, so first of all, this kind of reminds me back at the retreat that we earned through the team back, I think it was October. I can't ever remember. But Tamara Holloway made us all go around and say like all the, like spend 30 seconds of saying all these things that we were good at or like positive things. So like when someone asks a question, they're like, oh, what is like a positive thing in a leader? I think everyone's first initial reaction is kind of be like, I don't want to talk. Like, why is it so hard to say something like positive about yourself? But I would say probably for me is more, I think I tend to be more raw and like realistic with my post as far as like parenting or so I think that people can be drawn to someone that's not sugarcoating something, and you're just being like raw and realistic, and you're not beating around the bush. You're just getting to the point.
Yeah.
I think that people are drawn to me as the leader because of a sense of authority. Like sometimes it's bad feedback because I get a lot of people telling me that I'm kind of a know-it-all, but I feel like everything I say it like I know what I'm talking about. And I have a lot of people tell me, I come to you because you teach me things but I'm going to call it authority, not know-it-all.
No, I think confidence is a good one too.
Yeah.
Confidence. She
Yeah.
talks a lot about that later too.
I think to piggyback off of that, when I started Plexus, I mean, I'm telling you, probably 5 to 8 people had reached out to me like, oh, you should do Plexus. You should do Plexus. And I was just like, no, sorry, thanks. And I'm sure I ghosted several people, but I think back of like why I was drawn to Carissa, whom I didn't really know besides the social media presence. And it was because I felt like she was like, again, she didn't sugarcoat anything. She wasn't in your face. She was very, this is my life. And she showed that she was successful at it. Like I joined her team right when she hit Emerald. So she showed that she was successful at what she was doing, but she did it in a very like understated way where it just seemed realistic for normal people to get under and be able to do it with her. So I was thinking back of like why particularly like I was drawn to her when people were reaching out to me left and right. And I was like, no, I don't really like, it was very understated, but in this same sense, she showed that she could be successful at this. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, I like one of the things that she made sure to mention of that he talks about in his book is the story of Harriet Tudman. And I love, like, I think that goes a long way too, because it talks about how success doesn't depend on where you've come from, like, or where you start. It's dependent basically on where you go with what you have. I mean, I think that's to be said for a lot of things, because I don't know, like, most of your guys' history, I don't know many of you like real well, but my history, my family has a lot of really bad health habits in their history. I come from a very long line of genetics of blood pressure issues and diabetes and all these different things. And I have worked my hardest, basically my whole adult life, to try to work against those odds. Even though as a nurse specifically, I know that that is in my bloodstream, I also know that I can control the majority of that. And I think her story with Harriet Tudman, talking about success and where it comes from, and how basically you're not born into success. Success is basically stepping stones. And a lot of that is more success come from when you have a good leader. Like if you're watching people and if you're learning from people who are leading in the right direction, like you're going to succeed if you continue to follow those steps. And I felt like I liked her picture of that with the Harriet Tubman example of that. It says, this one kind of got me. When people respect you as a person, they admire you. But when they respect you as a friend, then they love you. But when people respect you as a leader, they follow you. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I never really thought of it much that way. But it's very true. And I think it's very important later on in the chapter, or in the video technically, but in the chapter 2, it talks about the importance of some of the closest people to you, how it's important to have their respect and their love. But I find it interesting, and I don't know, maybe you guys have found this too, but like in business and in my plexus journey, like my family is not my biggest supporters. But I think that comes with a lot of it too. But I think the important part to note is that as long as you're still being a leader and you're pulling people in and you're helping them, and you're not changing yourself in the sense of starting to become someone that they don't know, I think that's really where kind of the point that she was trying to make with that. And you guys tell me if you've got something different out of that. But I found that very interesting because like family is not always your biggest like business supporter, but they should always be supporting you and loving you. Sometimes they can be your biggest critics though, which I think is a big ability to, well, at least me personally, a lot of times I'll see that as a challenge. And I'm like, okay, well then you're going to find out, but it's also a good way to check yourself, I guess, because if you're starting to grow into somebody that they don't even recognize, you've lost yourself, right? So the goal isn't to change into a completely different person. The goal is to grow into a better version of yourself, right? And that's the goal, not only just for business, but for life in general. And so I think finding those leaders that we come across on a regular basis and looking at their lives and looking at their decisions and kind of following them and saying, oh my gosh, that's what I want, that's what I need. And then learning those traits and learning those things that they do to become a successful leader. That is when I think really the rubber hits the road and people can start really seeing you as a leader and starting to say, okay, she's really starting to step up her game, or, oh, that's information that I need. Oh, I can see that there's some change going on there. I really like that. I want to apply that to my life and things like that. And I think family will be your first people to tell you if you're starting to veer off the edge of that. A lot of times, at least my family would be.
What you're saying is really similar to my experience.
Mhm.
I had a lot of harsh negative feedback early on in my plexus journey. And some of the most relentless criticism was from some of the closest people. So I have lots of thoughts about what you're saying. I had to really take a step back and examine who I was viewing as some of my closest friends, because I have changed a lot in my plexus journey for the better. The person I've become has been for the better. And while my family wasn't always fully on board, that respect was there. So if they were coming to me with concerns, it was always from a place of, I know you and I love you. And so here's where I have questions. But there was a baseline of like, I trust your heart. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. And so can we discuss some of these little things? But I also feel like a lot of people don't have healthy family roles, like just healthy family structure. So a lot of the time, like if your family is really dragging you down, I don't know that that's always the most accurate litmus test, because, like a lot of people have a real, like their family is not necessarily all that great of a benchmark for like what it looks like to be succeeding and getting your life together. And I was going to read this because it reminded me of this. This is from Jordan Peterson. He says, if you're starting to put your life together and have friends that object, those are not friends. A friend is someone who can listen and suffer along with you without telling you worse things that have happened to them. But they're also someone you can tell good news to, and they will say, wow, great, wonderful. I hope 10 more things like that happen to you. And they're not envious, jealous, or one-upping you. So I feel like we all need to kind of watch for that, even among our family, because family can do that too. And then I'll skip through some of the things he says, but basically ends it by saying, if they are aiming down in their life and they want you going down with them, there's nothing good about what's happening to them. And there's nothing good about that for you. And so, yes to everything you're saying, but also sometimes we do need to be starting to look drastically different from our family of origin. And sometimes the people closest to us show their true colors in the fact that they don't have the respect for you, and really they're not celebrating your wins. They are not happy for you if a good thing is happening to you, and they, are devaluing. So anyway, those are some good little benchmarkers where you could start to kind of figure out, okay, this is the real inner circle. These are the people whose opinions I'm going to give like weight to.
That's very true. I take for granted the fact that I have a pretty intact family that are pretty solid people.
Mm-hmm.
And I take for granted the fact that not everybody has that. And that's so very true and important to mention, because I know sometimes those are unhealthy relationships from the beginning.
Right.
So, yeah.
I felt like for me, when I had a certain core group of friends who was relentlessly committed to the idea that, I don't know, it was the worst possible assumption of my character when it came to all of their like objections to plexus. It was always coming back to like the worst possible assumption of my character. And so that was when I had to go, okay, these are not friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really hard sometimes. But that kind of goes into the next, when she was talking about too, the fact that like leaders, as a leader, like difference between a leader and a friend, they can coexist, but there are points in times where as a leader, you have to lovingly direct people with some not so great news. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if you have somebody who's, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. That there was one that I was thinking of the other day that I was listening to one of the videos, and she was saying that basically there was something going on in a group where there were words being spoken that were probably not the best things to do. And she had to kind of take that leader and say, hey, listen, we need to talk because this isn't beneficial. Like, this isn't helpful, and it's not going to get better if we continue down this road. And so, like, I guess, what is it that you think draws the line between the difference of a leader and a friend? Like, because yes, I do agree that they can be both. But what is something that sticks out in your guys' mind that you would say more is a more leadership quality versus a friendship quality?
I think for me, this one was kind of hard because my closest friends, I want them to tell me the truth, even though I know it's going to hurt. And so in a leader aspect, I feel like that's the same because I love and respect them at that same level. But I'm not going to have every friend be that. Like there's going to be those core people that are going to be that. And I would much rather have a leader tell me like it is than keep encouraging me and keep pushing me on. And then I never keep growing. And so it's the same with a friend. Like I'd rather tell a friend like, Cassie, that was a bad decision. And then, you know what I mean? So
You don't make bad decisions.
I don't know. Right now, our puppies are not getting along. We just got home. So
Just the first few hours. It'll be fine.
I know. Anyway, but who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard sometimes too, because I agree. I'm the same type of way. Like in my friendships, for example, I just had a conversation with one of my best friends yesterday that I literally punched her in the arm and I was like, listen, this is not how we behave. Like I didn't say that, but like something of that nature. And I feel the same way, Cassie. I expect that out of my friendships. If I veer, especially when it comes to my walk with Christ, that is something that if somebody sees something that I am missing, like, please, like, come to me. Like I am open enough to knowing, and I want to know, like, I don't want to veer people away, because of something that I'm doing. So that is definitely, I agree with that. I think one of the things that she was saying is a leader's willing to basically like your parent. If you love them and you want to succeed, you're going to have those hard conversations with them. You're going to tell them what they need to hear, not necessarily what they want to hear. And I think that's a good kind of difference between a leader and a friend sometimes. And it depends on your friends. I think we've determined that too. It's always talking about how if you love them, lead them. I really liked how she said that. If you love them, lead them, because I think that's a good way to look at that when you're coming to a point where you have to have a hard conversation. You have to remind yourself of that sometimes, I think. And then it says, don't let fear get in the way of your goals. And I think that's a big part for all of us. Man, when she started getting into, and I might be getting a little ahead of myself here, but when she started getting into the point of like, what is it, failing forward, or what did she say? Oh gosh, I wrote it down multiple times, but basically, even if you're afraid of doing it, you do it anyways. Like those are the type of qualities that I think that is super, like, important, especially as a leader, because you have to set that example. Yeah, leaders hold you accountable, right? And that's a good difference. And obviously, I think our friends should do that too, but not always. Sometimes friends just want to be friends and they're not strong enough to do some of that stuff. Sometimes depends on their personality, but definitely leaders should hold you accountable. I think that's something that I need to remember for my own team, is that they want me to help them. They want me to direct them whenever they need to do something different, or maybe not that I've had to do that yet, but in the future, like if there's something that comes up that they should have done better or something like that, like they depend on me to help direct them with that stuff. And I think, I expect that from Cassie. Like if I've screwed up, hopefully she will tell me and be like, listen, we could do that better or something of that nature, because I think that's something that I expect from her. And so I should expect that from my own team, is being able to do that for my own team and not being afraid of having those hard conversations sometimes too. So, so how to gain respect. Let's see here. What are different ways that you can think of that are ways that you gain respect from people in general, not just necessarily business, but in life? What are different ways that you guys can think of that you gain respect?
I think that sticking to your values, even when it's uncomfortable, and just showing everyone like, I know this is hard and this is harder for me to actually do it, but I know it's the right thing to do.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Values, I think, is a big thing because I think that goes with your character. And a lot of times people who are watching us aren't watching us necessarily for leadership skills, but they're watching you for your character. So being consistent, listening, adding value, strong character. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And then I liked when she was talking about how, what did she say? We're leaders to a bunch of volunteers. Like, basically we're all doing this voluntarily because this is what we want to do. It's not something we have to do like a job. So you're a leader, you're not a boss, right? And I think I'm not the type of person to really have that mentality, but I know there are some people out there that probably do. And there are a lot of people out there that have probably been bosses in their job. So maybe they have more of a mentality to kind of go at it that way. But I think that's something that's super important to remember too, because and the other thing that I thought of when she said this is, that's when it becomes important to make sure you know the goals of your team, the goals of your people, because if you don't know the goals, you may be inputting your goal into their business, and this isn't your goals. This is you helping them grow to their goals. So I think that's something that I really kind of grabbed onto when she was talking about the difference between leaders and bosses, because I think that's a big difference, because as a boss, the ultimate goal is just whatever the company says, right? That's not necessarily how it works with what we do, or even in life. I mean, everybody has their own separate goals. So I think that's really important, how we make sure that we're goal setting with our teammates to make sure that we're helping them achieve what they want to achieve, and we're not helping them achieve what we want them to achieve. We can only do so much for them before they have to do it themselves, right? So we want to make sure that they're achieving what they want to achieve. So Chris says you can always be helping them see a bigger version than they believe for themselves. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's important too. I think she talked about that a little bit too, is the fact that obviously you as a leader, and this is way down the line, but you can foresee like the potential. But sometimes, I mean, think of how long it takes some of us to get to that point of actually seeing that in ourselves. So just kind of doing that carrot drop periodically as they go until they get to being able to see that full potential, I think is huge. And I think that goes into that intuition part that she kind of hits later on too. Let's see here. When she talks about respecting people's independence and autonomy, being patient with their objections and their need to process in their own way. That's a big one for me. I'm sure it is for all of us, because I think we get so excited because we can see and we know what these products, specifically for Plexus, we know what these can do for people. And so I am really bad about word vomiting on people sometimes. So I have tried my hardest to really catch myself in that, and instead of just spewing all the knowledge that I've gained so far, stop myself and start asking more questions, because I find that the more questions I ask, or the more questions they ask, the more knowledgeable they themselves become, and then they're able to make a better decision, or to make a decision in general, versus me just throwing all this information out that they're going to retain like 1% of. So I think that's huge. With the patients and that sort of thing, do you guys still, I mean, those of you who are your Jules and the higher up people, that you guys still have that? Like the patience and trying to work on that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think when Christina was talking about too, how even to this day, she's terrified, not terrifying, but things when she has to do Zooms or whatever and stepping out of her comfort zone, it still bothers her. And it was such a great reminder, no matter where you're at, you're still trying to do things scared. And I think that it's a great reminder on every level that no matter where you're at, as long as you're doing something scared, that's the biggest key. But yeah, certainly it was a great reminder of patience, because again, sometimes we see more potential and more things than even other people in our business, but we have to be respectful in the process of their season too. So lots of good keys.
Yep. Yep. I liked also how she was talking about, you know, in order to get respect, you have to give respect. That's a really big one. And I think we all probably are very familiar with that, but that, and obviously the autonomy and being patient with their responses and stuff like that goes completely along with that. But she was talking about how you treat everyone you meet like they're a future diamond. And I was like, that to me, I was just like, I never thought about that, but that's a really good point. Like, you just automatically put that potential into them, like, and say, you never know, you just keep dripping on them, and those that are going to jump on are going to jump on, and then those that aren't, then that's okay. But I thought that was really cool. Another sign that she was talking about of a good leader is courage. And what's really funny to me is I was looking over this stuff and I was listening to her, and I just thoroughly enjoyed listening to her when she was talking about that, because she was talking about how much of an introvert she is, which you cannot tell from her videos. Like, she is just such a natural speaker now. Apparently she didn't always used to be, but she's great to listen to in that. But she was talking about good leaders do it scared, and how they do what is right, even under, and this is what the book says too, says good leaders do what is right, even under relentless criticism. That's kind of what we were going back to, what you were talking about, Carissa, earlier too, is even though like some people will criticize you, I think as a leader, that's something you almost have to expect, because not everybody understands, not everybody is in the same position you are, not everybody gets they don't have the education behind this either. So I think that's something that you really have to understand, is you will meet criticism. Like, that is just something as a leader, no matter what you do, you will always meet criticism. I mean, even in my personal like job as a nurse, my bosses get criticism all the time, and you just have to learn to go with it, and you have to push forward and continue to do what is right, because that's what we're called to do in life, in business, and whatever. You're always called to do what is right, no matter what pushback you get. And I found that, like, I just really liked that point that she had. Yeah, definitely courage to develop thicker skin, because that is definitely something that to be a leader, eventually you will develop thicker skin. Even if you don't come into it that way, you will eventually get there.
And back to you, back to your thing about the patience as people have their objections and process. Brittany Howard has taught me a lot about that in a different video series about coaching. But she talks about, like, if you're getting frustrated with people, you are too, you're not being objective, you're not detached enough, that you have to be able to approach whether they have objections to getting started on the products, or objections to getting started in the business, or whether they're in the business and they're coming up against roadblocks that you're trying to help navigate them through. But if you find yourself getting frustrated with people, then you're like attaching yourself to the outcome. And she's really big on encouraging you to detach from, I mean, obviously, like, want it badly for them and be in it with them, but don't be tying something within yourself to the outcome, which is tough to do, because with our own teams, their success is tied to our paycheck, which is, I think, why it's been so helpful for me and Megan to coach each other's team when we do coaching, because no one on her team is tied to me. And I am very objective and detached. And same when she coaches my team, she is objective and detached, and we're able to just approach it not in a place of frustration, but really curious and kind of just more neutral, more like, okay, let's figure out how to beat the game here. Like Emily Gibson always says, like, figure out how to beat the Donkey Kong here, not feeling so tied to it. But I thought of that when you were talking about having that patience with people's objections and process. And that's helped me a lot.
that is a super good point. And it's funny because that you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is definitely something that I have found myself doing, because obviously we all have goals in this. And like when we set goals, that's something I think that sometimes in your brain can kind of work against you too, because you do get more goal oriented instead of person oriented. And that is one thing that I've always, when I first started with Cassie, I just told her, I said, I could care less if this makes me a lot of money. I want people to feel better. I want to help people feel better. And sometimes I get so excited about the incentives or about the ranking and that sort of thing, which is obviously very cool still. But I literally feel like I have to remind myself that on a weekly basis and be like, okay, where is your focus? If this person doesn't sign up, then you know what? It's just not time for them. And that's okay. And we have to remember that it is in their time, not my time, and that God put me here for a reason, and God will provide whatever it is I'm supposed to do. So like, I have to remind myself of that on a regular basis. And I think that does come with leadership. I think you have to realize that you can want something, like it's like that tricky balance. Like you have to still be able to want something and really work hard, but also not get to the point where you're pushing everybody away from you. You know, because you don't want to be that person that you're just so focused on your own goals and your own success that you're not taking into consideration their financial hardships or their concerns about, you know, their health or like all these different things. So that's a very good point. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something I do quite regularly try to remind myself of.
Well, and it's helpful that in so many cases, it is best for that person to order. It's best for that person to be consistent with their products. And it's best for that person to go sell for and be able to pay for their products. So there's not a whole lot of conflict when it comes to like, if I'm working hard toward a goal, it's also in most cases what is best for those people. But there is that the ability to detach from the frustration as they are needing to go through their journey
Process
way. And I think that allows you to help them navigate through it better. You can be patient with them and stay in it with them and dig with them into their objections and stuff. But
for sure. Let's see here. Yeah, she talked a lot about so with the courage, a big portion of that was talking about doing stuff scared. Your lives, Cindy, your live the other day that you did scared, I was so excited for you. I mean, trust me, I remember being there back in January when I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this on camera. Like, it is so uncomfortable to do, but the more you do it and the more people see you're changing and all that stuff, like it has so much of an impact on people. So like with lives and posts and sharing, casting vision is a big one that was one of those things that I never even thought about as something that was scary, but it makes sense because the whole idea of allowing yourself to dream, like sometimes that's just scary. Like, and a lot of us, as we've gone through life, sometimes it becomes really hard to dream after a while, especially if you've had a lot of criticism in the past or whatever. So that can be definitely scary for that, idea, but just doing it scared, you have to decide whether or not you're gonna, go forward. And that's the thing, is if you allow fear to be that stronghold that keeps you from moving forward, then you'll just stay right there, and so you have to weigh your balance what you want to do. Do I really want it that bad, or do I just want to stay where I'm at? So let's see here. How do you respond to criticism? It's a really maybe a great question, maybe not. I will tell you, me personally, it depends on the type of criticism, and I have to be very careful because defensive is a really good way, because I can jump back real fast if I'm not careful. So I've had to really grow in the sense of trying to take a breath before I speak. But sometimes I want to hide. I just want to not do stuff for a while. You know, I see defensive discernment. That's a good one. Oh, Cassie, good. Hurt for sure. Yeah, that's one of those things that I think criticism, especially depending on who it comes from. If it's from somebody that you barely know, a lot of times I'm real good at chalking that up to being like, well, they just don't know me very well. And then when it comes from people who are closer to you, that gets a little tricky. I even had a friend tell me just 2 days ago, she's like, all your Plexus posts, I just want to unfollow you. And I was like, oh, what kind of friend are you? Like, I did tell her that because she knows me well enough. But I was just like, don't be a jerk. It's just like, you know, but like, it's those comments, Christina. Oh, but sorry,
If she
Cassie.
ever joins your team and watches this recording.
Well, she's actually on Cassie's team.
Oh, that one.
Like,
Oh,
yeah, that
love
one.
it. It's okay.
It's just like,
It's okay. But
You're
see,
brat.
but that's where the friend zone and whatever is there
Yeah.
still. So you could still, because she's so close to you, you could still have those conversations with her.
oh, I
But-
did. I told her she was a jerk. It was fine.
Oh yeah. And I think with criticism like that, it depends on, like you said, the person. Because if, you know, like Chelsea, immediately hurt, you know, it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm a
For sure.
feeler. And so I have to get those feelings out. And so that's where I'm like discernment as well of like, okay, wait, where are they coming at a place with this? Did I do something? Did I, you know, and falling back and first evaluating, wait, is something going on in their life that maybe is causing this, and they're not seeing my full
Mhm.
picture and making it more criticism on me versus what's happening in their life behind the scenes or XYZ. So I've gotten better definitely for discernment of pulling back and figuring out, okay, wait, let's validate what's true and what's not true and then go from there. But I think the first is hurt, and then the first can be defensive, like, whoa, 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 no, no, no. And so I
Yeah.
think there was a visual that is like, with an email, you always want to do drafts first before you hit send. And I think the same with any conversation like that, like draft it out first before you have that conversation back. So
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's a sign of a good leader though, too, because that it goes to some of the stuff she talks about in the future with intuition as to how you learn all that stuff. And a lot of that is learned from experience. So there's a big to say in that. She talks about being vulnerable with your team, being vulnerable with your upline. I really like how she was talking about it's okay to be vulnerable and communicate your struggles after you've overcome them. I think that's so important because it's not that we're being fake, because time ago I would have said, well, I'm not going to be fake, but I am not going to also get to a point where I'm venting to my downline, I lost that word, and discourage them when it's just a matter of growing through something. She talked about how Christina, I think it was Christina on her team, had those YouTubers that copied her information and just basically beat the pulp out of her videos. And I don't even know what they did, but like, I can't even imagine. I would have feel so not insulted, like just attacked. And she just brushed it off and was like, you just don't get it. You can keep going because I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I think that's kind of the personality or the mindset you have to have when it comes to being vulnerable sometimes, because it's okay to be vulnerable with each other, especially when you're just having a rough day. But if it's something that you know is something that you just have to work through, having the wisdom to use your upline for that, because most of the time your upline has gone through that. They've experienced that. And if they haven't, somebody above them or that has had more experience or longer time in this, they have, so I think that's really important as a leader, especially, is to make sure, like, when you're struggling or somebody's come at you with something that you just didn't expect, Like taking that to your upline, or taking it to like, maybe like if Cassie didn't know or Cassie wasn't available, I could, message Carissa or something and ask them, like just things like that, and reminding yourself that it's not being fake to like your team members. It's just growing yourself, and you're looking to your leaders to help you grow, just like your downline is looking to you. So in a moment of weakness, sometimes I think sometimes that does happen, like if you just get super frustrated, but always try to keep that in mind. Like I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm getting frustrated over something. I'll either talk to my husband, which he hears a lot from me, or, Cassie, or, just asking questions and saying, okay, I'm trying to think through this. So that's just something. And then honestly, later on, once you've grown past that, think of the testimony that is to the rest of your team. Once you're able to finally become vulnerable with them and really share that with them, that can be a really strong testimony, and really sharing that and saying, hey, this is what I was feeling. This is what was going, I can only imagine with Cassie when she was starting products and she was gaining weight, like I would have been real frustrated with that, So going to your upline and saying, what the heck is going on, versus getting into it with one of your sidelines or something like that, because you're both frustrated, like that's not beneficial. You want to go to somebody who's going to help you grow through it, not somebody who's potentially you're going to drag down with you. Like we don't want to do that at all. So that was something I felt like was super, super informative, like that was good insight for sure. Let's see here. Loyalty was another big one that she talked about. I think loyalty is a big one. Now, I will say when she was talking, I tried to check myself, because I have, and I have told Cassie knows this, but I've done multiple network marketing companies in the past. But like I had to check myself on that, because I was talking about being loyal and being a company person, respecting stability, within the company. And I felt like that was something that I never left a company because I changed my loyalty. I left a company because typically they imploded. But I think that's one thing that is really important, is you're a product of the product. And we have to remember that. And so not only with just loyalty to our products, but loyalty to what our company upholds with health and wellness and hope, like just being that positive, personality that people would attribute to somebody with plexus, I think is super important as a leader, and as being somebody who you're going to be like, this is what my company can do for you. This is what my supplements can do for you. This is where we can go. Like, you're not going to want to be somebody who's posting on Facebook, just, really discouraging things all the time. Like, people aren't going to be drawn to that. Like, that's one of those things that you have to make sure that you're uplifting. And I think about my own like journey and stuff. And I feel like that is definitely something that comes with, experience sometimes, is just being able to say this company is so much different, because like when you're loyal, and you could see that through years of growth, for example, for the company's been around for multiple years and they've just gotten better. Like that says a lot about the company. And I think the loyalty in that, and being a product of the product, I think to me was very like, that was like, yeah, that's why we do this. Let's see here. So how can you tell that you have earned your team's respect? One of those things.
When they come to me and be vulnerable themselves.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely when they want your opinion, Taylor said. I definitely think when they're leaning on you and asking you questions and trying to get your direction for different things, that's a really good sign. They're going, like, for example, my team comes and asks me questions. They don't just automatically go to Cassie, which would be fine. I mean, I know Cassie's a wealth of knowledge, and sometimes I have to go to Cassie. A lot of times I have to go to Cassie, but I think that's a good point, is just whenever they're gleaning from you and leaning on you, wanting your opinion and your advice about stuff, I think those are for sure good signs that that they respect you. Yeah, when they trust you and do what you say, even when they're scared. That's a really good point, Taylor. Sorry, my battery's getting low and my husband's gonna go grab my battery. Yeah, my charger. All right, let's see here. Chapter 8. It says leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. So the laws of intuition. How many of you guys, do you guys feel like you have good intuition about things? I think she was talking about how everybody has their own intuition in different areas. So I guess maybe my question would be, where do you feel like you have good intuition? Does anybody have any ways that they feel like they have good intuition? I feel like I do a pretty good job when it comes to, I don't want to say judging character, but like being able to tell when somebody's sincere. I think, like, if I can tell if they're sincere, or if I can tell that they are genuine with what they say versus when they're just telling me what they think I want to hear.
I think at this point in the game, I have developed a pretty strong radar, like a good intuition for victim mentality and limiting beliefs that people have kind of come into agreement with. It's really, really rampant. Like, it's the norm for people to have come into agreement with an identity that's actually just a limiting belief. And I've been around long enough and dug in with enough people that I can really spot those pretty quickly. Now, the tricky thing is you can't just say to someone, hey, you have a limiting belief around that. You have to help them realize it. Yeah. Unless you have a great relationship and they're already a growing person, like working on a healing journey. Like, I could definitely say to Cassie, hey, what I just heard you say, like, I think that's actually a limiting belief that you've like come into agreement with as part of your identity. Anyway, but I feel like with most people, I have to ask the questions to help them realize that that isn't necessarily who they are. It's just something that they've been believing that's keeping them stuck. But anyway, that's area of intuition, I think, for me.
And I liked that she said that a lot of us have different intuitions, like Joy had said. And I think for me, I usually can tell when something's off. Like when somebody's character or judgment or something, I'm like, wait, Patricia, what's going on? Tell me wait, I can tell you stepped back. Or I'm using you, Patricia, because I see your name down here. But I can always tell when something's just not right. They've either checked out or they're not as engaged or just something. I can read people pretty well in that aspect of just checking in and finding what's going on personally.
Yeah. What is intuition like? What do you guys think intuition is? She talked a lot about how it's not necessarily something that you can teach. It's not well taught. So, like, to you, what is intuition?
For me, it's like knowing, like, not necessarily like something's going to happen, but being able to kind of like look ahead to see the outcome of something. And that's where I know, I think I have a little bit of that, but not with my business, but like at work where like an idea comes up or they ask me to do some kind of transaction or something. And then I kind of like look ahead a couple of steps, and I'm like, I can see whether, okay, if I do this, this is gonna, I kind of see like the domino effect of it, kind of. So that's what I think intuition to me is, just being able to look ahead a little bit.
For sure. I definitely think, I was going to say, Irene can relate it to discernment. I agree with that for sure. It's very, if you have that ability to kind of discern things. I think she mentioned, let me see if I can find it here. It says direct perception of truth or fact was her definition that she put to it. And I think that's a good way to explain it for sure. It's something that you can kind of look at. And a lot of times, I think she was talking about how leaders get to a point, because a lot of it comes from experience. A lot of intuition comes from knowing, like, for example, in my line of profession with nursing, my intuition when I was a brand new nurse was very small. It was basically based off of what I learned in the textbooks versus now, 20 years later of doing it. I can tell you when a woman walks in and she's, you know, whatever, you know, I mean, that learned experience goes a long way. And I think takes, as a leader, it can be very, very important when you start talking to people and you start asking them questions, when you're trying to learn about them, like your intuition of them, I think is very important. I think intuition can be in a lot of different ways, like we talked about, in the sense of, like, I find it, I typically, like I said, whenever I am getting to know somebody, I kind of can have like an intuition of like where their goals are going to be. But I feel like sometimes, and I don't know if you struggle with this, but I feel like sometimes, like, that's that, I don't know, like judgment coming out too. Like, I don't ever want to keep somebody somewhere where I just feel like, well, this is kind of what they're going for, or something, you know. So I think that's goes with learning your intuition and learning as a leader, because you want to be careful, because you, even though you do have that intuition, you do have that gut feeling about people, you also have to make sure that you're, you know, not limiting people because of what you may think you see. You may not have gotten to that conversation yet or whatever. So she's talking about the biggest part of the business that requires intuition a lot is coaching. That's, I feel like, definitely some, I mean, obviously, I think that's a big, obvious part of that. She mentioned about how leaders are readers of people. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know about you. I love to people watch. I am a big people watcher because I think you can learn a lot about people just from watching them and watching their body language. Like, there's so much you can learn about people. And I think that is one big thing about leaders is you don't want to be afraid to people watch, but at the same time, you also have to allow them to be vulnerable with you and talk to you about things and take away what you think you know. And I think that's something that everybody grows to learning. Let's see here. It talks about how are you at trusting your intuition? I think this is where she talks a lot about how you're either a facts person or a feelings person. And that was one of those things I had to kind of sit back and be like, am I a facts or a feeling? Because I can be both. I'm sure we probably all can be both. But I think I typically, when I was going through it in my head, I think I'm very much a facts person, because I, like, when my husband's telling me stuff, I'll ask him questions. Well, how do you know that's true? Like, where did you get that information? Like, what are you learning that from? Like, so I feel like I ask a lot of questions, and I feel like that makes me more of a facts person. What about you guys? What do you think? Are you good at trusting your intuition because you lean more on facts than on feelings? Because I think that's where she was going with that. Like, I think she was, like, from what I could tell, if you or if I were somebody that goes more on feelings, my intuition, I feel like, would sometimes be almost more questionable, because you don't always want to go out of your feelings. What do you guys think about that?
For me, I think it's a mixture because I tend to second guess myself because I don't think I have enough facts. And I feel like I need more facts
Yeah.
and make sure I'm telling somebody right.
For sure. I agree with that, especially in this business. Because I'm always like, hold on, let me make sure. I don't want to be lying.
Yeah, there's something to be said for the other side of the coin because yes, you're right that being able to look at the facts in order to move forward is more reliable. But like what Shara just said, overthinking is like death in this business. Like overthinking, you know, that's why Mel Robbins says like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, do it. And every little scary thing that we have to do to grow, you can talk yourself out of it so fast when you start overthinking. And so that's the other side of that coin where you don't have to sit and gather information. You really just have to do the thing and look back and go, oh, I didn't die. And then that helps overcome the fear. So yeah, I mean, it's like there's pros to both.
For sure. It's a very good point. Especially when it relates to doing things even though you're afraid of them, because that is a very true, valid statement.
Yeah, and like with Sarah, is my new business builder, Sarah, is going to watch the recording later. And one thing we've talked about a lot is that as she's like gearing up to take an action, she finds herself trying to like preemptively figure out what all the scenarios are going to be that might come from it, and then know how she's going to handle them. And all that is overthinking. And, you know, 99% of those scenarios aren't going to play out, but it does stall you.
For sure.
And so, yeah, you just have to think of the visual of like, I can't see around the bend. So I have to walk up to the bend in order to see what's going to come next. Like I just have to walk up to the bed. There's no way to stand back at this side of the hallway and see what's going to be around either of those corners. You have to go there and then take what's next.
That's right. Make the baby steps to the bend,
Mm-hmm.
and then baby steps around the bend.
Yep. And then
with or with
what comes.
Yeah. With or without future knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Very good point. Yep. Very true. I like that. It puts here, it says, in all kinds of circumstances, leaders pick up on details that elude others. I will tell you, as I was trying to finish the video, I was telling Cassie, there's like a 4 minute snippet that for some reason on my phone, on my computer, my work computer, I could not get it to load. It's like almost last 3 minutes. It wasn't completely the last, but she was talking about that, how leaders pick up on details that elude others. And then the next thing I got was when she was talking about planning a project with your team and how successful will it be if you're not doing the actions. So if any of you have insight in those 3 minutes that I missed that you felt like were really good, by all means, please let me know, because I cannot remember. I didn't get a chance to see it for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I did find that comment really interesting where she is talking about in the book how it says, in all kinds of circumstances, leaders will pick up on details that elude others. And I think that's very interesting because I think that goes back to looking through a leader's lens. Like you're always looking at situations as a leader. And I'm not 100% there yet by any means. I may be more than I realize. I don't really know. But I feel like sometimes as you're looking at things and you're catching on to things, and then you start building from some of the stuff that you like, I feel like that's a good sign of a leader. Like if that's what I'm understanding her saying correctly, is you can look at something and pick something out and then just start to automatically figure something out off of something that they put out there that other people are just like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. What did you guys get from that? Did you guys like, can you think of any scenarios that kind of help exemplify that, what she was talking about? How as a leader, you pick out certain things that other people miss?
Probably like pain points,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
because I'm still trying to learn that as a leader, is digging deep into those pain points.
Mhm.
So as a leader, as you grow as a leader, you'll be able to identify those a little quicker than what you would starting.
Good point.
Yeah, and she said with coaching that gets better and better too, because I think I remember towards the end of the call, if I can remember right, she said it's taken her 6 years to start seeing those things, so then she can like see the trend or see how to help them. But it's taken years of coaching or talking to each teammate or whatnot to help them move them into where they need to be. But it's not, we all know it's not an overnight thing, but yeah, for sure. Finding those pain points and then recognizing them, because every time you do, it just gets better, not better. It just gets easier to see and recognize, kind of like what Carissa already said earlier. Like she can now immediately see victim mentality or other things that are happening. So.
Yeah. And she was talking about, when she was talking about the event, I felt like that was a good, even though I missed a few minutes before that, I felt like that was a really good way to determine how your leadership is going on your team. Because if you are setting up an event, if you're sitting there saying, I'm going to do something, but I'm not going to do it, I'm going to give opportunity to each of my team members to step up to do it. If that event will be successful, then you're doing well as a leader, right? If that event does not work or falls through, then there are ways that you can grow as a leader, because you want to make sure. She was talking about putting people in places, like learning about your people, being that friend, that leadership friend, and learning about people and what they're good at, what they're not good at, what people shy away from, putting in those opportunities for them to grow, and being able to help put them in the positions to step up and grow themselves. I thought that was a really good way to kind of judge how, as a leader, you're doing in the sense of your team. So I think that was, I mean, did you guys get anything else out of the end of that or anything like that? Because that was about, like, that takes me to the end of my notes that I scrabbled onto my pages. But just basically trying to go ahead.
What I kind of took from that too is it's kind of a great example with creating your own event, because you can then see, oh, maybe I need to be searching for this type of builder, or to help complete the team, to grow my team out more. So to me, it kind of opened my eyes on, oh, okay, maybe instead of just going after this one type, I need to go after multiple people that are good at different things, not the same thing.
For sure. I think that goes too with growing your intuition, like growing your intuition of learning people and just kind of being able to pick out those character qualities sometimes too, with what matches with your team. So very cool, girls. That's all I got. I hope you enjoyed it and got some good nuggets too. I thought this was a really good one. So I'm excited to read the next one.
Me too. All these are so good. You did awesome, Julia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. See you guys later. Bye. Have a good night.
You too.